Welcome to the first part of the EHR training with Management Plus. We are going to start right here on this screen which is the Management Plus home screen. So all you'll need to do is log into Management Plus, and this will be the first screen that will pull up. What we want to do from here is we want to open up a patient. The easiest way to do that is to come over here to the right-hand side, and you're going to see every patient that is scheduled to come in today. They're going to be in time order, with the earliest at the top and the latest at the bottom. What it's going to start out showing you at first is it's going to show you every single patient, no matter what doctor they're seeing, no matter which location they're being seen at. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to filter by only your patients. The easiest way to do that is to filter by physician. So what you're going to want to do is come up here to the physician column header, click on this little pin icon, and you'll get a drop down of all the physicians' names that are in your practice. Just click on your name, and it'll immediately filter all the patients by your name. You'll only see your patients. The system should remember that, so that anytime you log in from now going forward, that filter should already be applied, and you'll only see your own patients, again in time order from the earliest at the top. From here, all you have to do is just click on one of the patients, and it will open up their patient demographic screen. These are patients alerts that are part of the practice management side. We're going to ignore those for now. And we're going to come into the patient demographic screen. Now, the patient demographic screen has basic patient demographic information here at the top. At the bottom, we have all these different tabs that you can select. You're going to want to select the tab that says EHR. The system will remember which one of these that you used last time, which was why mine was already on EHR. So probably after the first time you use it, it will start defaulting itself to already have that EHR tab selected. Now when you guys do it, because you're barely starting out using the system, you're going to have this area be completely blank. It'll probably say something like no data to display, and it'll be white. I have this patient who I play around with a lot, so he has several different types of EHR encounters and examinations, so I get a line for every EHR encounter he's had. Now, all you have to do to start out is anywhere below the column headers, just right-click, and you'll get this menu right here. Click on New, and it'll pop up this open dialog box. To start out with, we're only going to have one option called examination. You'll use that for pretty much every type of exam. We may end up with like a phone screening or some other ones as you use the system and you get familiar with what you might need. But for now, there will only be one. All right, so I'm just going to click Open, and it will go ahead and open a brand new exam for this patient. Now, you'll have to wait a second for this to open. It's going to go a little bit slower because of the recording that I'm doing. So we'll give it a second to open. Now what I want to start out doing is, here's where it opens up on the exam. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this and come back to the patient demographics area. What I want to start out doing is I want to talk about this patient demographics page and what each of these columns is and how this kind of shows up inside the system. So we're going to start over here on the left-hand side with these three little icons. Now you can see that I get a new line for every single icon or every single exam that I've saved for this patient. Now I just barely opened an exam, but I haven't saved it yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump back to that exam, and I'm going to put in a visit description. We will go over this more in just a second, and I'm going to click on File and Save, and then I'm going to come back to my patient demographics screen. Typically you will not have to do this because you're going to be jumping around back and forth with patients, but if you ever do not see something that has been refreshed, you can right-click and click refresh, and it will show up. So now you can see that I have this visit that I just barely created. we're going to go over these icons over here on the left-hand side. We'll start with this lock icon, actually, since it's already there. What this little lock icon means is that someone has that record open and is editing it right now as we speak. So there are a couple different ways that we can see who has it open and who is editing it. One of the easiest ways is to just double-click on it, and it will tell us, hey, so-and-so has this record open. Now you can view it in read-only mode, so you can go in and see the status of the record, but you will not be able to edit it. I'm going to go ahead and click no, that I don't want to view it in read-only mode, but now I know that System Administrator has it open. Now I'm currently logged in as System Administrator, so I'm the one that has that record open. Another thing that I can do is I can scroll clear to the right-hand side, and there's a column called Record Locked By, and it tells me who has it open right now. Okay, so that's the lock icon. As soon as this person gets out of the record, that icon will remove itself, and it will be open back up if somebody else wants to go into it and edit it or needs to go. All right, so that's the lock icon. This left-hand side icon is what we call the finalize icon. It means that the record has been finalized. Now, I want to talk about two different ways of signing off on your records. The first way is what we call an individual sign-off. An individual sign-off, essentially what it does is it puts your electronic signature on the record, and that's it. All right. The other type of sign-off is called finalize. When you finalize a record, not only does it put your electronic signature on the record, but it also locks the record so that it cannot be edited anymore. Now, a person who has the permissions, the security permissions inside of our system to finalize a record also has the security permissions to open a record back up for editing after it's been finalized, or what I refer to as unfinalize a record. All right, so I want to kind of show you how that works. So we're going to jump back into the record that we have open. What we're going to do is we're going to start out by doing an individual sign-off. So we're just going to electronically sign the record. If I look clear up here to the right, it tells me who the person is that is signed in. Right now, I'm signed in as System Administrator. It should show your name there as the doctor or whoever the person is that's signed into the record. It uses that name as the signature for the record, so you're going to want to make sure that it shows your name right there when you do this sign-off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to my menu options here up in the top left corner, and I'm going to click on Visit. Then I'm going to come down and click on Individual Sign-Off. Once I click on Individual Sign-Off, I'll get a little message showing me the visit has been signed off. It also saves the record up to that point, anything that I've put in, and I just click OK, and now that record is signed off. Now, if I come back to my patient demographics page, it doesn't do anything to this column because this column only works if you actually finalize the record or sign off and lock the record. The individual sign-off does not lock the record. But what I want to show you is what happens to the record when you did that individual sign-off. Anything that I've put in, you can see all these individual fields where I can type in data. Well, in the background, all these individual fields are being converted into a written record. We call that written record the narrative. So if I come up here to my menu options again and I click on Window and then click on Narrative, I can see that narrative up to this point. If I scroll all the way to the bottom, I'm going to see this electronically signed by category, and then I see that System Administrator signed at such and such a date, such and such a time. That was added in there as soon as I did the individual sign-off. Now I want to show you the difference of what happens when I do a finalize. So if I come back up to this visit and I click Finalize Record, it's going to save the record up to this point I'll get the little thing that says it's been finalized. Now you can see what happened is it gave me this red read only up here at the top. Now you got to pay attention to that because it seems like I can come back in here and edit the record and type stuff in and do things. But if I go to get out of the record, all of my save options are now disabled. Because the record is locked, I cannot make any changes to it. So I'd have to close this record and any changes that I made would be gone. So you got to pay attention to that red read only. Another thing that happened is if I come back up to the window and click on narrative again and scroll down to the bottom, now under my electronically signed by header, I have a finalized by. So it shows my name again or the person who's logged in, the date, time. Now, what I want to show you at this point is what happens if you need to go back and edit the record. Well, it's locked. You have the ability to unfinalize or allow editing to this record. So the way you're going to do that is you need to come into the record and you'll click on Visit and you'll click on Allow Editing. You're going to need to put in a reason. Our system tracks pretty much everything that's entered into the system. The reason could be received lab results or forgot to enter this or whatever you want to put in there. Just type in while you're editing the record and just click OK. What's going to happen is it's going to open that record back up. Now it officially won't be unfinalized until I save the record again. So I'm just going to save it without making any changes just so we can see what happens to the narrative. So if I come back up now, you can see that the read-only is gone. So I'll come back up to Window, to Narrative. I'll go down to the bottom again. Now it shows that editing was allowed by so-and-so at such and such a time, and it puts that little reason there at the bottom, at the side as well. So I would make my changes to the record, do whatever I need to do, and then I would want to go back up and finalize the record one more time. Same thing, it'll save the record to that point automatically. I'll get my little thing telling me it was finalized. I'll see the read-only show up, and if I come back up to Window Narrative again, scroll back to the bottom, now there's going to be one more line saying it was finalized. So I did an individual sign-off here. I finalized the record here. I opened it back up for editing here, and then I finalized it again. So you can kind of see what happens on this electronically signed by and the difference between the two. So the main difference is, as far as auditing and stuff goes, as far as we know, you could use either of these. But the difference is the individual sign-off does not lock the record. So a lot of practices will ask us, well, the difference between the two, which one should I use? We recommend finalizing the record. I will show you why in just a second. But one thing I want to show you now is if I go back to my patient demographic screen, I'm going to refresh this. Watch what happens to this upper visit here. The lock icon removed itself. The reason it did is because now that that record is finalized, it can't be opened for editing anyway. So the lock icon's removed. But now you can see the little green icon with the white check mark telling me that the record is finalized. So if I look here, these three records are not finalized, but all the other ones are. So that's what finalizing does, and that's what shows right here in this left-hand column. Now, one of the things I want to show you is why I recommend that you finalize the record rather than just doing the individual sign-off. We have a tool that you go to your Home Management Plus home screen to find. It's called the sign-off work list. If I click on File, go down to Electronic Health Record and click on Sign-off work list, it'll open my sign-off work list. Now, what this is it's going to show me every single record inside my entire system that has not been finalized. This does not work with individual sign-off. It only shows the ones that have not been finalized. So even if you do the individual sign-off, they would still continue to show up in your sign-off work list. So this is the main reason why I recommend that you finalize rather than doing the individual sign-off. Now you're going to have the same thing here that we had with the scheduling. It's going to show every single patient inside your practice, no matter who the doctor is. So you're going to want to filter by doctor. Again, it should remember your preference from then on. You should only have to check it this one. So what you're seeing here is every record that I've ever done with any patient that has not been finalized yet. So let me kind of show you why this is nice. If you're the type of doctor that likes to go at the end of the day and kind of get an overview or have the charts placed on your desk or whatever you do, this is a great place to do this. If you keep up on this sign-off work list and you finalize your patients and you're doing it daily or weekly, then you're going to have a pretty good overview of the patients you've seen. I would not recommend waiting more than a week because this list will get hundreds of patients long and you won't be able to tell what's going on. If you use it daily, you'll be able to see only today's patients in this list. The nice thing about that is you have a few options here. So I know these are different dates of service, but let's pretend that I saw these people, it's the same patient too, but if it was all the same day, then I would be seeing just patients that I saw today. What I could do is I could right-click on one of these. I can open the patient, which will open the patient demographics area. I can click on Review Record, which would take me back to here. I could review the narrative, which would pop that up and allow me to review it. Or I can print the narrative, or I can finalize the record straight from here instead of from inside the exam. So what you could do is instead of signing off from here or finalizing the record from here, you could just leave all your records open. Once you're done with them, you could just close the record out and save it. And then at the end of the day, come to your finalized work list, and you can kind of glance at them. Do I need to go in and look at this patient's record? Then review record. If I think it's good, then I might want to just right-click and click Finalize. One of the things that's valuable here is the status area. If I come back to my exam here and I look on this right-hand side, there's this status box. There are several different statuses here that you can use. You can edit these status lists. What I would recommend is that you just have one of you in charge of editing these lists. Otherwise, you might get duplicates in here and people adding things that probably shouldn't be in there. But once you have these kind of how you want them, you could just select one of them and click OK, or you can select from the drop-down. One of the things that I do want to point out is anytime you see these flashlights, what's happening is the drop-down is being filtered by what's typed. So right now I'm only going to see things in the drop-down list that start with the words dictation needed. Well, there's only one thing. So I'm going to have to delete that whole thing if I want to be able to see all the rest of my items. I could start by just typing a D, then clicking the drop-down, and now I'll see only the things that start with a D. But in order to see the whole menu, you need to delete what's in there to get it blank and click on what you want to use. So let's do pending labs. All right, so that's how you would set a status. Well, on your sign-off work list, now I know, hey, I should not finalize this record until I do the dictation, or if I save this one, it'll show up as pending labs. I shouldn't finalize it until those lab results get back to me and I can scan them into the patient's record. So the status can be used, anybody I've ever seen use it uses it as kind of a reminder system for the doctor to do something before the record is finalized. So that can be pretty valuable as well. So maybe I go in and I do the dictation for this exam right here, and then I'm ready to finalize it, or maybe I'm going to wait and do it tomorrow. What I can do is I can highlight by holding down my control key while I click. I can skip one of these. And then I can right-click and click Finalize Record. analyze all the ones that I had highlighted. So very quick and easy way to sign off on all your records at the end of the day, and to get an overview of what you've done that day, and to see if you need to do anything before you finalize the record. So that's why I recommend using the finalize option, because then it will allow you to use the sign-off work list. That is a pretty valuable tool. Let's head back to our patient demographic screen. All right, so let's talk about this next column. This next column is a little globe with an up arrow. What that means is that this particular record has been published to the portal. That means that it's been made available on the patient portal for the patient to be able to log in and either view it or download it or transmit it to another doctor or whatever they want to do with it. What shows up for the patient is the narrative, the written examination. So as you make changes to a record, every time you save it, it automatically updates the narrative. So as long as that record has been published, it will automatically push out the most updated version of the record onto the portal. All right, so the way that you're going to publish a record, you're going to come into an exam. If you look up here to the left, you see the little publish with the green check mark. The green check mark means that it is published. All right, when you first come into an exam, it's going to be a red X. What I would do is get in the habit of clicking that red X to make it a green check mark right at the start so that you don't forget. Then if you happen to change your mind about publishing this record for the patient for some reason, then you can uncheck it. But get in the habit of checking it. The publishing, making available online the record for the patient is part of meaningful use and MIPS for the meaningful use part of MIPS. So you're probably going to want to do that. All right, so let's go. Once you've published the record, it will show up with a little icon here as having been published. So that's what those three columns there on the left-hand side are for with the icons. The next column is the date of service. Pretty self-explanatory. What I do want to point out, though, is where it is on the exam. When you come in, it's right over here on the left-hand side. Now there is a setting inside of our system that you can turn on or off that will automatically put the date of service in for you. I have it turned off, or turned on, excuse me, so that it automatically put 12:30 as my date of service. Well, I could turn it off and it would come in blank, and then I just have to select a date of service. Now you don't have to leave it as 12:30. If I did, maybe I saw a patient over a weekend, and now it's coming, and now we're Monday, and I'm going to enter that patient's into the system, the patient's record, then I can change the date of service to Friday or Saturday or whenever. Or if I'm pre-entering data for a patient that's coming in tomorrow, I can change the date of service to tomorrow. But again, I have it defaulted to automatically fill in the date of service when it opens the record. I will show you how to turn it on and off those defaults when we go over this blue area up here at the top. Let's go back to our demographics. So that's the date of service. The creation date of time just shows the date in which the visit was created, no matter what the date of service says. Visit type. Remember when I right-click and click New, now it's telling me, hey, you already saved a visit for today. Are you sure you want to create a new one? I'm going to click Yes just so I can show you this. But the different templates we have, the name of the template will show up here. So if we ended up with a phone screening template down here at the bottom, you might see 4 examinations and a phone screening and another 3 examinations. Just kind of gives you an idea of what they came in for. The description also gives you a little bit more detailed idea of what they came in for, but I would still keep it somewhat broad. You don't want to type in a whole chief complaint right there. The point of this is so that if you ever came to this screen and glanced at all the patient's exams, you want to get a fairly good idea of what they came for that day. So you might want to type in something like complete exam or red eye, glaucoma follow-up, full exam, diabetic checkup, that kind of thing. The place that you put that is right up here in the visit description. So you just type in whatever you want. There's no drop-down menu or anything like that. You just have to type it in. right? So, and that shows up right here in the visit description. We already talked about status. That also shows up here on the patient demographic screen in this column. The next 4 columns are the top 4 diagnoses for the exam. They're also shown right here in this blue area, the top 4 diagnoses right here. You will not put your diagnoses in here when you're diagnosing the patient. You're going to go to the examination page, and I'll show you that later, how you put in the diagnoses. But those top 4 will show up here at all times. Now, there's another setting you can turn on to make it automatically pull the diagnoses from the patient's previous examination if you want to. Some people like that because then when they start a new exam, they can immediately, even when they're on the workup area and they can't see the other diagnosis portion, they can just glance up here and see what they diagnosed the patient with last time. So again, I'll show you how to turn that on and off a little later, but that is an option. So those 4 diagnoses, when you save the exam, will show up in these 4 columns on the patient demographic screen. The next column just shows you which doctor it was that saw the patient. Inside the exam, that physician is right here. Now this kind of functions just like I showed you with the status, where it's, if I have Frederick Jones put in there, then it's only going to show me doctors that start with the name Frederick. So I'm going to have to delete that to get the full physician list. Now with our system, the first time a patient is seen inside the system, you will have to select yourself as the physician. From then on, we can tell the system to use the same physician for each subsequent exam. Again, that's a setting that I'll show you how to turn on when I show you how to turn on the other ones as well. But just keep that in mind. The first time they come in, you'll have to select yourself as the patient, as the physician. All right. Back to the patient demographics. Creation staff will be the staff member who created the record. We talked about the record locked by. The next 2 columns just show us if the record was finalized, who did it, and when they finalized it. So those are the columns in the patient demographics area under the EHR tab. The next thing I want to show you is the menu options when you right-click. All right. So again, I mentioned before that when you guys first start out, this is all going to be blank. It's going to be white. Just right-click anywhere, and you can click New. Well, once you start getting some exams in there, what you're going to want to do is right-click on top of the exam you're trying to work with. If you're creating a new exam, you can right-click anywhere. Even though this 8-9 exam is highlighted, if I click New, it doesn't matter. It's going to create a new one. So I can click anywhere to create new. But if I'm doing some of these other ones, I want to right-click on top of the exam that I'm trying to view or to do something with. So for example, I have highlighted the 11-1 visit. If I click Open Existing, it will open the 11-1 visit. Another thing that I can do other than clicking Open and right-clicking and doing Open Existing is I can just double-click on the visit and it will automatically open it. So that's what Open Existing does. I will come back to show deleted visits in just a second. I want to talk about these options right here. View narrative will show you a screenshot of the narrative as it was the last time the visit was saved. So you can kind of see what happened in the exam without actually going into it. You can print the narrative if you want to. View attachments and view thumbnails are almost the same thing. They just work a little differently. View thumbnail, I would recommend using view attachments because view thumbnails only shows you image files like JPEGs and TIFFs and things like that, whereas view attachments will show the JPEGs and TIFFs, and they'll show Word documents, and they'll show PDFs and things like that. So if you received a Word document or a letter and you scanned it in, or if you generated a letter from inside of our system, it gets generated as a Word document. So you would want to use view attachments instead of view thumbnails. What they do is they allow you to view anything that was attached to this particular record. This particular record that I was on, the 11-1, has no attachments. Let's say that I wanted to view attachments for several records. I can hold down my Shift key and highlight several of them at the same time. Then I can right-click and click View Attachments. And it will show me all the attachments for all of these records. There were only 3. Now, if I click on one, I can see a little kind of a thumbnail view here, but usually it's not big enough to see. So I could just double-click on it, and it would open it up in one view if I wanted to. Or I could right-click and click Open. I can print it, export it as a file, whatever I wanted to do there. So that might be a good idea if the patient has a glasses prescription and they lost it and they want you to reprint it. You could right-click on the exam and click on View Attachments and just print that glasses prescription for them again. So that's kind of how that works. And the next option, View All Lab Results, is only for clinics who have a direct lab interface with some local lab. I've only ever seen one client do that, and they were a uveitis specialist that had labs done for every single patient. So you probably will not end up using that. You can ignore that one. Import and export visit, you can also ignore. Our support team uses that when they're troubleshooting, so you can skip those ones. Select all, we'll just highlight every record. If you, for example, if you wanted to view the attachments or print the narratives for all the records at the same time, if a patient wanted, every record, you could highlight them all and then click Print Narrative, and it would print the narrative for every record at once. And then you saw me use the refresh button a few times kind of as we were going. Usually the system refreshes itself as you're moving in and out of patients, but if it doesn't, you can use the refresh button down there at the bottom. Okay, the last one here that I want to show you is the Show Deleted Visits. The Show Deleted Visits, I kind of want to point out that you can mark a visit as deleted. Now, the word mark is significant here because you can't actually completely remove a visit from our system. Legally, we can't do that, but we can mark it as deleted, meaning we can remove it from the patient's list, we can remove it from meaningful use reporting, that kind of stuff, so that it doesn't get in the way. So let's say that you accidentally created a record, or maybe you duplicated a record or something, and now you want to get rid of it or mark it as deleted. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into the record that you want to delete or mark as deleted. So I'm going to go in this one that we have open, and I won't be able to do this if it's finalized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to Visit and Allow Editing. I'll just put in Test as my reason. Now it's not officially finalized, or it's not officially unfinalized until I save it. So I'm going to save it once more. And then I think you have to get out of this and come back in if that's the case where you unfinalize it like that. So I'm going to open it back up. Now you can see it's not finalized anymore. Over here on the left-hand side, my finalized icon is gone. And then I'm just going to wait a second for this to open. Hopefully yours goes faster than this. Mine's going to be slowed down by the recording software that I'm using. But once you're into it, you go up to File and you click Delete Visit. Yes, I want to mark this visit as deleted. It immediately closes the record and it removes the record from my list. All right. Now, because we just marked it as deleted, the record's actually still there. It's just off this list right now that we're working with. Let's say that I accidentally deleted a record, or I decided afterwards that I had deleted the wrong one or something. I can still get it back. And the way I do that is by right-clicking and clicking on Show Deleted Visits. So now I'm only seeing the visits that have been deleted for this particular patient. If I right-click, I can see that Show Deleted Visit is checked. Okay. So let's pretend that I deleted the wrong visit and now I want to go get it back. So now that I'm looking at the deleted visits, I can double click on that deleted visit and open it back up. And then I can come up to File again and click on Undelete Visit. Yes, I want to restore this visit. So it automatically goes back and removes that visit from my deleted visits option. Now, one of the things that I've seen people do is they'll call me and they'll say, I swear this patient had several visits, and now I go into their account and there's nothing there. First thing I'll say to you is right-click and make sure that you don't have the deleted visits checked. If that deleted visits is checked, then I'm only seeing the deleted visits, but there aren't any, so it's blank. Even if I were to switch patients, that preference for me as a user is still checked. So I could switch patients and they wouldn't have any visits either, or it would look like they didn't. So you need to make sure that you uncheck that, and then you'll see the visits again. There's that visit that we just undeleted right there at the top. So that's how the deleted visits work. And those are all the options, the right-click options inside the patient demographics. And that actually concludes the patient demographics training portion of the EHR under the EHR tab on the patient demographics. And the next training, we'll go into the exam and go over some of the portions inside the exam.